Hunter.
And he's Andrew. And
And
we're
we're
good
good
boys.
boys. So, I'm just getting over this COVID, just a really brutal cold, but I was so devastatingly sick for like 3 days. Oh, it was so brutal.
Everyone was so devastated.
I know, but most importantly, me. Um, oh, it was so bad though. Like, I just had this horrible dry cough. I didn't do anything for days. On I think Monday night, I was like, yeah, I'll go and uh, do the dog walk thing or take him to the park or whatever I did. I got back home. It felt like I had just ran a mile and a half. It sucked so bad, and I'm pretty recovered now. So
I was going to make you do the show whether you recovered or not, so,
yeah. Also, um, because this is a spooky episode for Halloween. We were initially going to do costumes. Um,
Then we
but,
didn't.
Well, you didn't. I'm wearing this little cowboy hat.
Yeah, what's your costume?
Um, Guy in a little cowboy hat.
Oh, yeah?
It's just a zany hat. It's better than nothing.
I am a little cowboy hat, just on the verge of recovering from tuberculosis.
Yeah. I'm little tuberculosis cowboy. I didn't think cowboys really recovered from tuberculosis.
No. He's got the consumption.
Which is the sickest disease name of all time. Consumption. Seriously, that's really cool.
Why?
I don't know. It's consumption. You're being consumed. That's awesome. It's a lot cooler than anything now.
Yeah, COVID isn't creative. It's a fucking acronym.
Yeah, it's exactly. Consumption's like it says what it means, Like, I don't know. I don't know if that's insensitive to those still suffering from consumption. But
are they still out there? Is that still a thing? If they are, they can't. If they are, they're not going to be able to hear this podcast. It's fine.
Yeah, they've been too consumed. All right.
Too consumed to tune in.
Yeah. All right. So, we were gonna go ahead and talk about some movies. Give me a rundown on what we're talking about.
So we discussed that we were going to bring up and recommend 3 horror movies, thriller movies included, that are lesser known, ones that are not typically in the public consciousness, ones that we doubt the other one has heard of or watched, and, just sort of talk about them, recommend them, and why we feel they deserved, a bit more attention than they currently get from pop culture. So, there's no Poltergeist, there's no Exorcist, no Friday the 13th, none of that stuff. We're going a little deeper cuts.
Awesome, gotcha. No Friday the 13th, Jason in space either.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever
or
one
Takes
that's
Manhattan, neither.
Yeah, which is a real shame. It's a great one.
Hmm.
All right, do you want to get it kicked off then?
Sure. I'll start with during our preliminary discussions, I originally mentioned I was going to do a horror movie from 2006, just as a little tease for you, and you were very perplexed on what I could possibly be choosing. It ended up not making the list, because the more I thought about it, the more I'm like, oh, you know what? That's not a good movie. I don't want to recommend that to people. But just, for your own satisfaction, I was going to recommend originally Big Bad Wolf from 2006. It's a werewolf movie. Teenagers go to a cabin, get attacked by a werewolf. Most are killed. It actually stars Kimberly J. Brown from Halloween Town. Bit of an older, she's a little older then. In one scene, she has to give the werewolf a blowjob. It's a whole thing. And the werewolf, he's like conscious, like he talks, and like he's he's ragging on the guys. At one point when he's attacking the cabin, he rapes the girlfriend of one of the teenagers, and the boyfriend is like, "She was a fucking virgin," and the werewolf's just like, "Not anymore." Like it's a really like that kind of movie, and it was really I found it very inventive and funny when I originally saw it. But the more I thought about it, I'm like, no, it's just bad. I watched a clip on YouTube again. I'm like, oh wow, this werewolf mess. Like he's talking, but the mouth doesn't move, and he's up on all fours, just like a guy, and he's wearing pants, and it's fucking stupid. So that did not make the list, but I thought I should is worth mentioning. No,
Real
it's.
quick before we move on from that, because I've never,
Mhm.
I've never heard of that.
Let's
That's
not
a
stick a
lot
pin
to.
in that yet.
Yeah. That's a lot to take in. Let me process. Does it? How much of the werewolf blowjob does it show?
Not much. As part of the plot, the guy who survived the cabin believes that his stepdad is the werewolf, but they need proof, so they need a DNA sample. He sends Kimberly J.
Oh,
Brown into their bedroom to grab a hair sample, but she gets caught by the stepdad, and it's sort of half. She has to talk her way out of it. Half he kind of makes her, and she ends up having to blow him and uses the collected semen sample for the DNA test.
so
And of
he's
course,
not.
that creates a rift in their relationship because it's like, oh, you gave a blowjob to my stepdad who's also a werewolf. This makes things awkward between us.
So is he a
But this is
werewolf at
what
that?
Kimberly J. Brown was up to after Halloween Town.
Yeah, checks out. It's hard to find work, I guess. Uh, the so at the time is the
He is in
stepdad or is
human
he a
form. He
werewolf?
is in human form.
Okay, I wasn't sure if it was like a Red Rocket situation with him
No,
being a werewolf. I don't know it. I don't know how that works.
no, and they don't actually show any of the scene.
That's good for everybody, probably. Okay, so that's your number one.
I didn't feel there was anything else worth adding to the list. Everybody go see Big Bad Wolf.
Yeah,
Stamp
right.
of stamp of approval.
10 out of 10.
No, for my real number three, and this is a soft order, but for my real number three, I decided to go with a werewolf movie that's actually good. So I went with Ginger Snaps from 2000. Are you familiar?
I'm not.
So it's a Canadian movie, pretty low budget, but very, very well done. And I picked it for its creativity. It's about two goth sisters who are in high school, and they're very much into, the dark stuff and dark makeup and, being down and, that sort of thing. And one of them gets into an animal attack and sort of they have a run in with lycanthropy. And one of the sisters, named Ginger, turns into a
Snaps.
werewolf. You get it. You have seen this movie.
I
Um,
haven't. What a title, though.
she becomes a werewolf, and it's really good because you get. I don't know. It's nicely developed the relationship between two sisters. The film is very conscious of its analogies between um, the physical transformation into the whole werewolf thing, but also young women going through puberty and making an analogy between that as they develop. And for a very modest budget, it is pretty good special effects. It uses them sparingly. It knows what to show, what not to show. They went with more of a dog-like design for the werewolf, which is actually kind of hairless. Like it doesn't have nearly. It probably has the least hair of any werewolf I've ever seen in film or TV. But it's very well done. They're not afraid to show some gruesomeness, show some blood, and yeah, it's for what it is. It's really good. It's a nice werewolf movie that I would definitely recommend people check out, especially because it promotes sort of a female centric version of this genre between the two sisters and how they're going through the process of womanhood and society as young women. And actually, all of my three picks today sort of focus on female leads because there's no I cherish women as the fairest sex, so I thought it was only right that I would choose a list that really promotes them.
That's good. I'm sure it was intentional. So, um, I like the idea of a werewolf movie that was made in the past 25 years. The only notable thing I can think of that's kind of werewolf centric are the underworld movies. Outside of those, you hardly ever see just a werewolf movie. The only other thing I can think of, I can't even remember the name of the movie. Oh, I might have to come back to that one. For some reason, I'm thinking it has Jesse Eisenberg in it, but that can't be right. Um,
There's the Wolfman remake. I don't know what year Dog Soldiers came out, but that was like late 90s.
no, it's neither of the two of those. This was very like this was I think early two. I'm not gonna cover to the name, but it was early 2000s. Um, it has like the early 2000s vibe where you, like I don't know if Evanescence is in the soundtrack of the movie, but it probably is. Like
My mind is just going to all the memes about movies in 2006 all ending with the Transformers end song.
yeah, it's exactly
Yeah,
like that. That's
yeah.
where I'm at too. But it's
Um,
yeah, it was probably early 2000s.
you're right.
But
It's hard to find a good modern werewolf movie. I mean, the three best werewolf movies, which I think are pretty collectively agreed on, all came out in 1981. That was the year. You got An
uh,
American Werewolf in London, The
Teen Wolf
Howling, huh?
and Teen Wolf.
No, not Teen Wolf, and Wolfen.
I have never seen Wolfen or The Howling.
I would recommend both.
Okay, maybe I'll check them out. All
What is
right.
your number three?
My number three, again, this is a very soft ordering. Same boat as you. This is one that you may have heard of, but I'm not sure. It was featured on Netflix for just very briefly, if I'm remembering right, in 2016. It's The Autopsy of Jane Doe.
Yes, I have seen that.
Dude, legitimately really scary. Or do you disagree with that?
Um, do you want my thoughts now, or do you want to finish your presentation?
No, no, I want your thoughts up front.
I thought overall it was pretty good. I thought it had an interesting story. I like the idea of it's like she's a cursed body, like sentenced to endure constant autopsies and all this terrible stuff done to her body that she just continually feels. Um, I thought the ending was kind of crap. Like it didn't ruin the movie, but it did significantly take away from it when they kind of make the deal of okay, the son can live and we'll do this, but then she kills him anyway, and it's like oh, so she kind of was a villain, not a victim. I don't know. I thought both the messaging and the plot line kind of lost itself in the last 20 minutes, but the
Yeah,
build up I thought was very good.
the build up's really good. It's very scary the whole way through. It uh, I think it leverages jump scares a good deal, but I think that they're fun and you weren't bracing yourself as much as you do for a normal jump scare, right? They kind of do catch you off guard. And I appreciate that.
I thought the best scenes were not the envisioned dreams of like everything going on outside the laboratory. Like the best scenes were the autopsy when they're
Absolutely.
actually performing and they're like, wait, what the hell's going on here? These readings don't make sense.
Yeah,
Those were the best parts of the movie.
this was odd whenever they start seeing all the writing inside of her.
Hmm.
They're like it sets a really creepy tone, and then you see people who are what was cool about it to me was you have people performing an autopsy, right? So they're used to dead bodies and general just nastiness, you know?
Hmm.
They see something that scares them to their core because in their daily life, this is so out of the
Yeah, it goes
just
beyond morbid.
for sure. Yeah. Like they live in morbid, they occupy morbid all the time. What they just do for a living would generally be very morbid for most people, but then it sort of you know, hurdles over that even. And I really appreciated that. Now I haven't watched it probably since 2016 or 17, but
Hmm.
it just
I think I
reading the
watched it like 2 years ago.
okay, then yeah, you've watched it even more recently than I have. Um, for me, I really liked it. Just it comes to mind when I think of something that was very scary because it really scared the hell out of me whenever I initially watched it.
Do you have any thoughts on the ending?
I wasn't a huge fan of it. It just seemed like like you were being set up the whole time to be like, oh, this person they're performing the autopsy on, like you said, is a victim. It's like,
Hmm.
oh no, she was like a witch. Like
Yeah,
she was not good. Why did you make us set up like I should care
exactly.
about her and what she was going through? Yep, I
Hmm.
agree.
My next one is Wait Until Dark from 1967. And this movie is notable because it actually stars Audrey Hepburn from such movies as, Roman Holiday, My Fair Lady, Breakfast at Tiffany's. And it's not an actress you would expect to see in kind of a horror movie. And it's more of a psychological thriller than straight horror, but it has definitely some moments of terror that I think anybody sitting down to watch will be like, a good like jump or a creep. And Audrey Hepburn plays a young blind woman who, is sort of in her apartment, and she has older husband and a girl from the building who comes and assists her sometimes. And she knows her way about, where everything is, just like a blind person who's used to their surroundings. And through an unfortunate turn of events, uh, a group of criminals believe that their missing drugs were placed in her apartment. So now these criminals are trying to get the drugs back. And there's also someone else who involves himself who's much less interested in getting the drugs back and much more interested in just, straight terror. Like it involves one, a very early rendition of what we would describe as a modern serial killer, which is really interesting to see. And so it's the terror of these men knocking at this blind woman's door and pretending to be other people. Oh, I used to be a friend of your husband's. We went to school together. Oh, he never mentioned me in this photo right here, this class photo. Yeah, I'm right there. She can't see the photo. Or, all this pretending, or someone comes in and puts on like a very different voice and is like, pretending that he's someone else, even though he's the person who showed up like 30 minutes before. Or they're just standing around in her apartment out in the open and she doesn't know they're there. Like she might hear a breath or a creak and she's like, is anyone there? So and so, is that you? And it's just, it's like it's very creepy because it's just there and you feel how innocent and out of the element she is, just having to deal with this. And the ending, which I won't go into any spoilers for the climax, which is amazing. It is probably one of the greatest jump scares in movie history, just flat out. Um, it's really good, and you see how creative and out of the box she has to be as a blind woman to try to hold these men of ill intent at bay until help can arrive. It's really quite something. It's really good movie, quite a bit of terror in it, and Audrey Hepburn is so good at acting as, this innocent blind woman who you feel nothing but sympathy for. It's really really good.
And what was that called again?
It's called Wait Until Dark from 1967.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that sounds like a fresh take. Yeah, everything on my list is from within the past 10 years. I didn't jump too far back. I've been doing like just a different scary movie every Sunday night.
Hmm.
So, I actually went and got a Shuttered subscription probably a little bit too late. I got that last week, so but yeah, I'm trying to catch up. I really been enjoying just the horror genre as a whole, especially whenever there's something like that where the premise is so different.
Yes.
Um, there was that movie recently. It's a horror movie. I believe the it's kind of the opposite of that though. Um, um, people go into this blind man's house for some reason. I can't quite remember, but he ends up being like sadistic, has somebody locked up in his basement.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. That I think the most recent
Is
one.
it
That's a
don't make a
sequel, right?
yeah? Is it don't make a sound or
Something like that. I know
don't
what you mean. I
breathe?
never saw any of them,
Maybe
but it's
maybe don't
like,
breathe.
isn't he like in the movie a pedophile or something? But he's like the protagonist, or there's something
No,
weird
no, I can't. It
because he
wasn't
has
that
like
great of
that
a
little
movie.
girl locked up or something.
Yeah, I think it's a young woman, but still, I think he's a creep, definitely a creep in some capacity. But I don't know if he's a pedophile.
Uh huh.
But
I'm going just on what I saw in the trailers.
yeah, I watched it, but I can't. It was kind of forgettable.
Hmm.
Again, the concept was still kind of cool though, just because
Hmm.
you remove like one party's senses. It's just a
Yeah,
fun thing to do
adding or taking something away from the traditional formula.
for sure. Yeah, it was called Dope. It's called Dope Breathe.
Hmm.
It has the guy that plays the I think that's him. The guy that plays the one commander in the Avatar movies. He's the protagonist, or maybe antagonist. It's tough to say because he's not a good guy,
Hmm.
and it's really doesn't follow him. I don't know. Okay, I'll go ahead with my second choice. So this one is actually from 2020.
Mm.
It's called The Empty Man.
Okay.
So movie starts out. There's a party of three hikers, and they're hiking through the I believe the Himalayas, and they go like across this bridge, and one of the party just hears a sound, and you as the audience, you don't even hear that sound. And he's like, ah, no, that is something, and he's walking. It's like he's nearly compelled. You know, he starts walking around and falls through this mountain, and the rest of his group runs over. Oh my goodness, whatever happened? They're yelling down, no answer, no answer. One guy jumps down in, is poking around this cave. Incredibly creepy. He walks over, and his friend is sitting with his legs crossed in front of this some sort of effigy statue type thing. It's incredibly creepy. I think it's like rib cage, like a rib cage, like a skeleton, but the rib cage kind of looks like fingers closed in. Really creepy. And the friend that's down there is, you know, like, what am I seeing? Because his friends just kneeled in front of this statue, sort of whispering, like mumbling under his breath. He gets into um, his friend is trying to say something to him, and he gets close to him so he can hear him. And I think his friend says, "Touch me and I'll kill you." Right? So he just, freaked out, whatever, grabs his friend, carries him out and away. His friend's injured, so he carries him the whole way. So it's two men and two women. One of the men is injured. They're in this cabin,
I thought you said it was a
and
party of three.
a party of four. I misspoke. Yeah, it's two
Mhm.
couples,
If you showed
and
up at a restaurant, you would not get that reservation.
you absolutely would. Tables come in twos and fours. Tables come in evens, not odds. So he they carry their friend, find this abandoned cabin, they go in it, and then it says day two. So it's like, oh, okay, there was the first day. It goes through um, the second day. The man that's injured's uh, girlfriend ends up. It sort of looks like she's hallucinating. Something runs her down in the snow outside when they're waiting for help. They their friend's still recovering. He ends up going to back up into the mountains in the middle of the night while they're sleeping. So they track him down through the snow. They get to this bridge where he's at, and they're like, hey, like we gotta go, whatever. And he's the cross-legged thing, sort of. It's almost like he's saying a prayer, and he just kills his party, right? So this is 25 minutes into the movie.
Hmm.
Everything's set up so you think that this group of four people
Is going to
is
be who
like
you're following. Yeah.
yeah, and then it's like 20 minutes in, it does the title card, and it's like the empty man, and you're like,
Mm.
now where the fuck are they gonna go with this from here? Was this all just set up? So the rest of the movie is actually a girl goes missing, and it's kind of like a mystery story. This uh, former cop who now just works at like a hardware store is trying to track his neighbor's uh, daughter down who went missing, and this guy had a incident where family died and things like that. You know, just your tragic, broken, like classic tragic, broken ex cop type character.
One might say that spiritually, he's empty.
Exactly. See, you're gonna get it. So they run through the whole thing. There's some foundation that he's like, oh, they're doing something creepy. There's some really good, just spooky shots and scenes that are freaky.
Would you describe this as high budget?
My guess would be 5 to 10 million. That
Okay.
would be my guess. So pretty good budget, you know.
But like, do
Um,
all the scenic shots of the mountain and stuff and the woods and rocks like look good? Like,
those all look good. Yeah, I all the scenes. Like there's a scene where they're up in the mountains in the Himalayas, and it looks like they're definitely on a snowy mountainside that looks doesn't look like it was put together to for a movie.
mhm.
Even this cabin setting's the same way. There's a point in time where they're at like a campground, same sort of situation, but he ends up solving this plot kind of, and part of the way through the movie, the guy from the beginning who killed all of his friends is just on life support in a hospital. So spoilers, he years ago kind of channeled this entity that sort of possesses him,
Mhm.
right? And a whole cult of people form around him that are devoted to trying to speak to this entity. The plot twist at the end, which was really confusing at the time, but looking back, it's like, oh yeah, that was an interesting enough twist. The cop, your main character, he was imagined into existence by all these people because that's the whole idea. Is if they're it's really confusing, and I'm not doing it. It's due diligence, but essentially this whole
It
cult.
sounds stupid when that I'm hearing it,
Yeah,
but
and
I'm
that's why
sure it has to work better in the movie.
it does work much better in the movie. But the ending is essentially this guy, um, because this group gained sort of an ability from like channeling this entity through the initial guy that was possessed. The cop was actually not even a flesh and blood person that was born. The cop was imagined into existence by this cult.
But he
And it
does
was
exist.
he exists,
Okay.
but he finds out essentially that like he just existed as like a means to fulfill some end by this cult, right? Like his
Hmm.
son that died never existed. Just as an example, the affair that he had with some woman never happened because he was born like 3 days ago, right?
Hmm.
So that's kind of how that movie ends, and it was one of those things. I'm not doing probably not doing its due diligence, but it was an original idea. It was pretty spooky. I'd recommend as like a flavor change,
And you think
somebody
the
give it a shot.
execution on that idea was done well? Because you said you
Um,
didn't like it when you first saw it.
yeah, I think it was you have to kind of piece it together a little bit more. You need that time after viewing to sort of be like, oh, okay, that makes sense now. Like, but just in the moment, it's like, that was kind of dumb. But no, give it some time afterwards, and you're like, okay, that was actually a pretty solid movie, pretty original idea.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, yeah, you're right. Even when something is done badly, you can still appreciate originality for what it is,
For
because
sure.
that's so rare.
It's so
I mean,
rare, and
God
it's
knows there's countless terrible movies that are just paint by number.
for sure, and it's tough to make a good movie that isn't paint by number too.
Hmm.
Like it's a double-edged sword there. I agree. All right. With your final choice.
My final choice is The Innocents from 1961. That is Innocence with an TS at the end, not CE. So this movie is a gothic psychological horror, and it stars Deborah Carr, who was a six-time nominee for Best Actress, never won. So, a little underappreciated in her time, and really carries this movie, because she stars as a governess who's hired by like infrequently visiting uncle to take care of his orphaned niece and nephew, who are little kids, like under the age of 10. And she has no experience, but she's very, very good-hearted, very into it, loves kids, and it's like, hey, let's get going. And I want to help these, little kids. Um, and the movie scenes of pure terror than Wait Until Dark. But as you watch it, there's just a growing creep factor, and it's not afraid to just rub that creep right in your face. Because as she begins watching these children, who at first seem extremely polite, very mature, very mischievous in kind of a fun way, like really good kids, she becomes increasingly convinced that these kids are being haunted and possessed by the souls of two former employees who died in the past year. So, like the former governess and like the former maintenance man who were in a relationship with each other, both died, and she thinks that their souls have come back to possess the children and carry on their relationship. And the thing that really strikes me as the creep of this movie is how much it contrasts with modern horror. Because modern horror, you get a lot of jump scares, you get a lot of quick movements. Like, someone would just be walking and it's and it just lasts a second. Like maybe it's a fake out or something. Or the scare is something's running at you like really fast. Like it's that quick motion, that instant quick motion that gets the
It's kind
fright
of
out of you.
jarring, and yeah.
Exactly. This movie, it's the complete opposite. And I'll describe two scenes. In one of them, it's at night, and she's just near the window, and it's this grand, mansion. So this big living room window with all this glass and panes and everything, and she's just looking out, and she can see beyond the glass what looks like the dead maintenance man. And he's just standing there. It's not a quick shot, it's not a glimpse. He's standing there and he's just staring inside. And the camera just holds on this for a really uncomfortably long time.
Oh, I love those
And
shots.
and
That's
you
something that
get the
seasoned
look on
me.
her face because it's not like, what did I just see? No, it's she's looking at this thing and becoming more and more terrified of what the hell is going on. And there's another scene that actually takes place in complete daylight. Oh, and this movie is in black and white. So it's daytime. She's watching like the little girl like playing in a pond or whatever, and she's out on like no what's the not a veranda, a little thing that's just like
Like
a
a
circular thing with a roof and benches like in a garden.
like a that's not a pergola. Like a
Um do you know what I mean? That what I don't know what
I
that
know
word
this
is.
thing. Yeah, yeah.
Anyway,
Anyway.
she's standing on this. It's broad daylight. And then at the other end of the pond, she sees this figure dressed in black and gray, which in the black and white looks really scary. And it would appear to be the dead governess. It's this drab figure standing there in broad daylight. And she's looking at this and she's like, wait, where's the kid? Does the kid also see this? She keeps looking back. The camera keeps turning to this point, and every time it does, you think, oh, it's going to be gone now. It's going to be gone there. But it doesn't go away. It's just there. Every time the camera pans back, this figure is still there, standing, staring. Like, that sort of thing, I don't know. Just the idea of me looking at the window, seeing something, seeing it stare back at me, but it's not moving, chills me to my bones. Like,
You
I
know what it's
find the creepiness of those scenes so much more scary and like stick with you than just the random, quick jump scares of a lot of modern horror. And I'll end it by just going that I won't do spoilers because I really do recommend people watch this. It's a really good classic horror. The ending goes all the way. No holds bar, does not puss out. It goes all the way, which was really cool. And it is very, after you watch it, if you think about it, it's actually very ambiguous. Like, there's nothing explicit in the movie to say, oh, it's definitely haunted. It's definitely these souls coming back to possess these kids. Or maybe this nice woman that you met at the beginning of the movie who was so interested in taking care of these kids but had no experience, maybe she's just kind of mental. You're not totally sure either way.
oh,
But
that's fun.
I again, it's called The Innocents from 1961, starring Deborah Carr. Could not recommend enough. Great classic horror that does not get at all the kind of attention it really should.
Awesome. I'll check that one out. I wanted to actually touch on the you were talking about like that sustained shot. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know what that kind of shot is called, but something
Sustained
that
shot
comes,
sounds pretty good.
yeah, like the that's something that I think recently has been making kind of a comeback. What was the Netflix scary series thing they do?
Oh, where it's like year, like the year's the name.
No, those I watched those ones. They were fine. But no, is it Haunting on Hill House?
Oh, Haunting on Hill House, Bly Manor.
Yeah. Um,
Which, by the way, I want to. Sorry, go ahead. I want to check something.
they do
But
that
yeah,
shot
Bly
a couple
Manor and
times in Bly Manor and Hill House. They do
mhm.
shots like that where it's sort of sustained with like the Hat Man. Like they do some sustained shots on him. It's very creepy. The other thing that comes to mind, did you watch The Babadook?
No, it's that has been recommended to me though.
It's really solid. There's a scene in The Babadook where, again, it's been forever, so I might be getting some of the details wrong, but she's laying in bed and he comes in and she, is scared and like hides. And she peeks up and he's on like the ceiling staring at her. And she goes back under and she looks and he's still just there.
Hmm.
Like it's so creepy because you want it to go away. It almost sort of invokes the same sort of like being freaked out whenever you wake up at like say 1:30 in the morning and you look in the corner of your room and say you have a coat like hanging on a doorknob or
Hmm.
something, you get that like, is that a thing? And you're staring at it and you just focus at it until it does. Yeah, eventually your eyes focused, adjust to the low light, and you're like, oh no, that's just a coat on a doorknob. Nothing scary. You like expect it to go away, and everything does eventually go away. With the sustained shots, though, it's I get a lot of fun with those too. I
Yeah,
think
they're
it's an
really
awesome
good.
shot.
Actually, now that you just brought up that comparison, I did just remember. I just watched The Conjuring for the first time, and I was surprised how good it was. Like, I know everyone says it's good, but I don't know. I'm so dismissive of modern horror out of hand. I was skeptical, but it was actually very good. And a scene that I really loved was, I guess, early on to halfway through the movie when one of the girls sees kind of the demonic presence in the dark behind the door, and she's just sitting up in bed staring at what in reality is nothing there to the viewer, but what she sees. And like you can see the look on her face on just this, this, like, she is frightened solid. And she wakes up her sister. She's like, it's right there. It's staring at us. And the sister goes up, looks behind the door, says there's nothing. And she's like, it's right behind you. And it's like, it's just this sustained shot on literally just a dark corner. There's nothing there. But the acting and the tenseness sells it so well. And because the camera's holding on it so long, you're feeling it. Like
Your heart starts
it's
racing. You're like, am I supposed to see
yeah.
it? Am I
Am I
not?
supposed to? Is there something there? What like
Yep.
it's really good. And I wanted to double check now that you brought up the Haunting on Hill House of Bly Manor. The name of the mansion in The Innocents is Bly.
Oh,
The
that's
same
fun.
name.
Oh,
For
very
all I
cool.
know, Bly Manor is some sort of reference to that. I haven't seen it, so I don't know, but it's possible.
Yeah, very well. Well,
But yeah,
it most certainly is. Actually, that's the. Did you watch that season? Did you watch Bly Manor?
I haven't seen any of it.
I haven't watched again for since it came out, but that's the whole That's the whole premise of this. There's a new woman comes in to babysit these kids, and that's the
It
whole
might be a
premise.
remake. I don't know. That's
Well,
that's
I
really
think it
fun.
from what you said, it very much sounds like it. It's even I could be screwing this up, but I think that instead of the maintenance man, I think it's the brother of like the owner of the manors is the boy, and then I think the last like
Governess is the woman.
well yeah I think more of like a nanny, but
Okay, yeah, well,
that
that's what she is. Yeah.
that sort of thing. Yeah, yeah. Um, yeah,
Damn, I had no idea that was kind of a soft remake. I guess I actually want to watch that now.
yeah, it's pretty good. But that's like the whole time you were talking through it, I wanted to bring that up too. Um, but
But yeah,
yeah,
well, if you like that, then I even more recommend you watch the original, The Innocents, 1961. Really, really good.
awesome. I'll check it out. Yeah, I'm sure it's actually probably better than Bly Manor. Like Bly Manor is pretty good. Can we actually take
It's
a
also,
minute to?
difficult. You're taking a 2-hour movie and turning it into a TV show.
Yeah, for sure. It burns pretty slow, but
Hmm.
nothing wrong with that. Um, it's weird today. Like child actors used to suck so bad,
Hmm.
but now they're pretty solid. You talked about like the little girl in The Conjuring. She does a good job. The kid child actors just seem so much better than they used to be.
What? I sort of half agree with you. I think it's not just that they're getting more talented. One, I think you have to define what child actor is. Like, I think the girl in the scene I'm describing, she must have been what, 9, 10? Not quite sure, but like,
Yeah, I think
I
under
guess
under
when I
like
think child
teenager.
actor, I think like 8 and under, like child. Um,
Yeah,
and I think it is partially, I don't know, before a certain year, they really weren't writing any good stuff for child actors. Like the
that
whole
is
purpose of
probably
them
it.
there was, they say, they stand there and they say a zinger, or they just impart a
Well,
sentence
they
that's
read a
supposed
line.
to, yeah,
Yeah,
which I
it's
think was
just
just
deliver
like,
this
and
line.
the director was satisfied with that. They weren't meant to be like bigger parts.
That could be the case. Deliver this line, you're happy. Deliver this line, you're angry. Deliver this line, you're
Exactly.
sad. Yeah, that sort of thing. Yeah, that could be the case.
I don't think it's just that kids have gotten more talented. I think that more is expected of those roles of those kids.
That could be the case. That could be. Um, just because, real quick, and then I'll move on to my last pick. Um, did I talk to you about Barbarian? I believe we already
Yep.
spoke about it. Yeah, that's one that is all over like everything right now. Everybody's talking about it, but it's really really
You're the
solid.
only person I've ever heard talk about it.
Oh, really?
Hmm.
Oh, well, it's definitely worth watching.
Did you
Like,
see that new movie with Justin Long? Oh, let's talk about, C-rated actors, just so I can talk about Justin Long and how much I liked this one movie. Yeah, yeah, I'm familiar.
I'm glad you remember. All right, my last
What's
pick.
your number one?
So my number one is The Summer of 1984, and it isn't one of those Netflix one that has like the year attached to it. It's not one of
Okay.
those.
Yep, never
So
heard of it. What year
recently,
did it come out?
2018.
Okay.
So recently, everything there's been a lot of 80s like nostalgia tripping sort
Hmm.
of stuff. So this is definitely that, and it's a coming of age story. The coming of age story focuses around this kid who is really into just like spooky conspiracy theory type stuff. Like when they do a shot panning his room, there's um, magazine cutouts of Roswell and like JFK and whatever. Um, so he gets a hunch that's backed up by a little bit of evidence that a serial killer that's been running around like the local few
Do you know where this
counties.
takes place?
Oh, I could be wrong, but I think it's in Massachusetts or New Hampshire
Okay.
or something.
But
Yeah.
definitely like New England.
Yeah, I think New
Okay.
England. If I'm it's either yeah, it's either New England or like New Jersey because there's a bay, so I don't know if it's, New England or New Jersey would be my guess.
We'll
Anyway,
include an edit here that says it's actually takes place in Colorado.
no, it's there's definitely something that's coastal, but it could, for all I know, it could be Portland. It could be so who knows? Or Seattle. It might be Seattle. I don't know. It's the coastline's not a tropical coastline, that's all I'm saying. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Mobile, Alabama? What?
Wow, look at that. So the movie's definitely like an 80s nostalgia trip, focused around, this kid thinking that his neighbor, who's a police officer, is the serial killer. So it's done really well. The actor that plays the kid, he does a really good job. But it shows him basically moving through his just daily life, like he's out playing like manhunt, tag, essentially with his friends. Um, he has the girl next door who used to be his babysitter, who's like his crush, and it just at a certain point in time, they're like, yeah, this guy's definitely the serial killer. They get into his home, they get caught spying on him. He basically says to their dad, like, it's okay, kids' imaginations, and the dad's pissed at his son, whatever. So the guy is a serial killer. That's fairly obvious.
Mhm.
But the movie's very spooky. There's a child killer. Oh, what's he doing, sort of thing. Like, we're kids that are suspicious of our neighbor, and there's a child
Mhm.
killer in the news, so it must be our neighbor who's a little weird. Two, in the last like 20 minutes of this movie, you witness a child getting killed. You see this serial killer that's like has basically a little memorial to his fucked up childhood that he's preserving. Um, you see a kid get mentally destroyed from like an experience, and you also see the somebody get their Achilles tendon cut, which
Oof.
is gives you the heebie-jeebies. But super well put together. Of the 80s nostalgia trip stuff, they actually do a good job at it. Everybody's believable. The How things very much heat up and then cool down, and then heat up and then cool down, and then it just goes off the chart with like heat. I think they execute like the pacing of it really well. So I would highly recommend Summer of 1984.
I will totally take your word for it that it is well executed, and the ending sounds very good. That it doesn't, holds no bar, that sort of thing. But I will say my interest in it dramatically decreased as soon as you described the plot, because that sounds like a direct ripoff of Disturbia, starring Shia LaBeouf from 2007, where he plays a guy who's on house arrest and
You're missing the point. You're missing
starts
it.
to suspect that his neighbor is a serial killer.
You're missing it. You're
Okay.
missing the point.
Oh,
This
you didn't
doesn't
explain it well.
this doesn't star Shia LaBeouf.
This is a totally separate thing,
It's
different
totally
genre
different.
altogether.
And it also doesn't have the big guy from Green Mile in it. The big the big prison guard from Green Mile is not the serial killer.
That's not Disturbia.
Disturbia, the actor that plays him, is also the big security guard in Green Mile. I can't remember the guy's name.
Oh, I security guard. I was thinking it's not Michael
Or
Clark
not
Duncan.
secure. Not se- Obviously it's not Michael Clark Duncan.
I mean, if
No,
you
not
say the
security
big
guard,
guy
prison
in
guard.
Green Mile, who
Prison
the
guard.
hell else are you talking about?
Yeah, the bigger prison guard in Green Mile.
Uh, David Morse. Yeah, he was in Green Mile.
Yeah, yeah, it's that guy.
All right, it sounds very similar, and I thought Disturbia was very good.
Oh, Disturbia is a fun movie. It's the age of the kids is a little bit younger,
Yeah,
so
it sounds,
there's
teenager, obviously he's not under house arrest. It sounds like very different dynamics, but the general idea, which is actually, I think, a really good tagline for Disturbia as the movie, is like every killer has to live next to someone. It sounds like it's just taking that same kind of point.
it is that premise, but there's some little nuances of it
Hmm.
with it that make
Yeah,
it
and I'm sure it was well done.
yeah, it was definitely well executed.
Yeah,
All
I
right,
just think you got to give full credit to Shia LaBeouf for pioneering that.
I always give Shia LaBeouf full credit. He's a great actor.
Hmm.
Okay, so now that all the nonsense is aside, let's move on to
Let's get down to brass tacks over
what,
here.
what we're really here for. Okay, so Hunter, can you go ahead and check your email for me?
Okay. Oh wow, this is elaborate.
So that is the definitive Halloween treat tier list that I put together,
Hmm.
and I want your take on that, and then we can get into a more
You do
broad
not
discussion.
even have Hershey bar on here.
No, I don't have, and that's one of the things. This was just a set of images that was available. Um, but the two things that I would include on this list: Hershey bar and Snickers. A Hershey bar would go in C tier, and Snickers would be in A tier.
What does S stand for?
Super tier, higher than everything else.
Sweet tarts?
Sweet tarts and Airheads. Yep,
You have an
are
apple? An apple in A tier? Okay, professor.
let me make my fucking point. Whenever you've been binging on all these sugary candies,
Also, it's such bullshit that you have Reese's
and
Pieces and Reese's Cups as separate things and in different tiers.
you can't even eat peanut butter. You don't get to
I
speak
know.
on that.
I know. I can't speak to how good it is. I can certainly speak to it's stupid to separate them like that.
They're most certainly different.
Crunch Bar deserves a lot higher than C. So does Laffy Taffy.
Where do you want to put
You
Laffy
really
Taffy?
hate M&Ms. Okay.
Yeah, M and M's
I
are
feel.
whack. Wait.
I'm not.
Real quick note on M and M's. M and M's are a D tier unless they're the mini M and M's, and then they become S tier. Mini M and M's are awesome. They taste better, and I don't know why.
I'm not huge into M&Ms either, but they should be C tier.
Yeah, but candy. Here's the thing: you also have to differentiate because
I'm with you
it's
on
still
Twizzlers
candy
is D tier. I'm with you on that.
for sure. But candy is like candy's candy, and you're happy to have it. So that's why you have to make a differentiator between the C and the D tier. That's the toughest. Like I would never pick this off of the shelf type candy versus yeah, on occasion I would buy this candy. What are your thoughts on Good and Plenty's versus Mike and Ike's on that list?
I don't eat either. I really couldn't care.
Oh, okay. What
Wait,
about
wait, wait. You have Werther's Originals under B tier? Are you
yes,
97 years old?
they're a hard caramel candy. They're delicious.
All right. I didn't know you were expecting your social security check in the mail. Okay.
Okay, you go ahead and reclassify my you seem to have the most issues, I guess, with my D tier. No, probably
I
not my D
I kind
tier.
of have issues with the not the full thing. Like I don't disagree with every placement, or at least I won't challenge it. But just there's a lot of things that I definitely do disagree with. First, I can't believe Hershey's not even on the board as a category.
It just wasn't.
Insanity. Like
I found
Hershey,
a template and it wasn't one of the images with the template.
which means you should have scrapped the whole template to begin with. But I will say I'm a little bit of a candy. I don't know if you would call it purist. I honestly think candy cannot improve upon just the classic original chocolate bar. it really doesn't get better. Like you can have, it really like just straight
Here,
chocolate.
null and void opinion. No, that's you just like plain stuff, regular stuff. Do you eat
No,
just chocolate ice
I love
cream?
wonderful chocolate.
I love wonderful chocolate as well, but I also like it to be, supplemented.
You can have supplements, but I think every single thing is a little like it's I consider it a derivative. It's like, oh, it's adding a little something, but you don't get better than the original chocolate bar. Like that is peak. That is standard.
That's asinine.
I want a Kit Kat or a Crunch bar as a treat and stuff, and I'll have um freaking I forget what's the Smartie. I'll have a Smartie or something every now and then, but like I always want to return to a classic Hershey bar. I'm happier to get Hershey bar in my trick or treat bag than anything else.
That's some Superman is the best superhero level nonsense.
And there's a good argument to that. Not one I necessarily share, but there's a solid argument for Superman, and maybe that will be a future topic because a lot of people misunderstand that character. Just like a
No,
lot of people misunderstand Hershey bars.
I totally understand Superman. We've talked about this 1,000 times. Um,
I went in a slightly different direction. Or at least I didn't prep an exact my tier list, but I did look up as of a few weeks ago, like I guess based on purchases or buys, like the most popular candies.
oh, that's fun.
So I have a list here with the same article carried information. 172 Americans will celebrate Halloween this year, 95% of which will buy candy. They'll spend an average of $27.55. And in total, Americans will spend 10.6 billion on Halloween-related things, 3.1 billion of which will be Halloween candy. So, this is a big market. The numbers they have, this is down from number 10 to number 1. Number 10, candy corn. Disgusting.
Oh, so
Tootsie.
do you like that whole category on that tier list I gave you?
Oh, it's the only place for it.
Yeah. Okay, at least
Number
we can agree
9.
about the most important thing.
Everything else falls to the side into the war against the war for against candy corn.
Yeah, that's fighting for what matters.
Yeah. Number 9, Tootsie Pops. I prefer a Dum Dum over a Tootsie Pop.
Yeah, I probably do too. Dum Dums have. I'm never mad about whatever Dum Dum flavor I end up with either. I like them all, even the butter popcorn.
They have a buttered popcorn? That sounds disgusting. No, I need either a cherry or strawberry. I'm very big into red artificial flavoring.
See, I'm a blue artificial flavoring guy myself.
Number 8, Snickers.
Awesome candy.
Number 7, Hershey's Kisses, which I don't know who would pick a kiss over even the mini bar, but all right, whatever. Hershey's on
See,
there.
I'll back that one a little bit. I like
There's so much wrapping you got to get through.
I don't disagree with that, but I really like the bite you get out of the kiss. How it's just like a knob of chocolate as opposed to a sheet of chocolate. Yeah. I really like that. The mouth feel of biting through the whole Hershey kiss is.
You love sucking on a knob of chocolate?
Ew.
For our British listeners, that was very funny.
Yeah.
Next on the list, Sour Patch Kids. I love the sour thing. I love. They're like in the shape of a watermelon, like the sour watermelon.
Oh, the Sour Patch Kid watermelon ones.
Are they technically Sour Patch Kids?
I believe.
Or are they a totally separate thing?
No, I think that they're Sour Patch Kids. They do the strawberries too. I personally prefer the strawberries over the watermelons, but I like the watermelons.
Okay. Yeah, I love those sour watermelons. Those are really good. Hot tamales? No.
I like hot tamales too, just like I like Big Red Gum. I like that cinnamon stuff. Do you like fireballs?
No.
You're just not into the hot candy stuff.
No. Number 4, Starburst. Gotta love Starburst. You never want it as like the main, but it's a great side dish.
A Starburst is great for like every 8th thing. You just grab a pink or red starburst.
Exactly. Number 3, M&Ms.
See, pretty whack. M&Ms are D tier unless they're mini, then they're A tier, S tier.
Number 2, Skittles.
Skittles are delicious.
And of course, number 1, Reese's Cups.
Yeah, they're really good.
Nah.
You
God.
say now like you like like you can have an opinion on them. I can't partake in it.
I can sit here in judgment and decide. Yes.
Yeah, the peanut butter is probably horrible.
And I looked up the like really low grade chocolate that nobody ever mentions. Mr. Good Bar, Heath Bar, Mars Bar, Mounds Bar, Clark Bar, you know.
Of all those things that you just wrote off, which of those do you prefer the most?
I don't think I've ever had any of them.
You should. So
Because
you,
I always just say, just give me the Hershey bar. I don't need to experiment with this. I know what works.
I think that you describe yourself as a purist. I describe your taste in candy as bland and unoriginal.
I thought you were going to say small minded.